everyone, welcome to the Clydesdale CrossFitter and Friends. My name is Scott Schweitzer. I am the Clydesdale CrossFitter, and today I have with me Amy Radowski
Hey.
and Kat Shearer.
Hi.
And we are so excited. This week has been awesome for interviews. On Monday, we released our Annika Greer interview, and today we are actually going to release our Jeff Goebel interview. Jeff was the #1 seed in the 55 to 59 age group division, and sadly that division got canceled, or all the age groups got canceled, so he wasn't able to attend the games and kind of go for that podium finish at the games.
I think we could still call him the fittest 55-year-old.
For sure.
Sure.
We're just going to go ahead and do that.
And beyond that, we could call him one heck of a guy. His story and journey is unreal. When we interviewed him, I really had to fight back some tears during that story. And it's really an emotional ride, and I think you will all enjoy this one. So let's go ahead and get to that interview, and we'll give you some news updates afterwards.
Certainly.
So just so our audience knows, Jeff is a 3-time games qualifier. Regretfully, after the announcement this week, two times you attended the games, and this year it looks like the age groups are canceled. So we're sorry to hear that, and sorry that you don't get the opportunity to go out there and compete.
Right. Yeah, me too. It's very disappointing. It's I guess that's why they call it perseverance, though, right? You just keep on overcoming adversity, and that's just what we're going to have to do. I was really looking forward to it this year.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got that announcement, I was just like, just another obstacle, just something else to persevere, just something else to overcome. But, that's life. Yeah.
And it's preparing for the unknown, right? That's CrossFit.
That is. Yeah.
And really what stinks is you came in first place.
Yeah.
Like you're the #1 seed.
Yeah. And so I was a little ahead of my game plan because, I wanted to be #1 at the games. I wasn't concerned about the open this year. The top 200 go to the next round. So I was like, some things that I'd learned from my past 2 experiences. One of the most important was that I just didn't need to train year round like that every single day, 3-4 hours a day. And so, and plus, it was a huge strain on my marriage, huge strain on my family to take that amount of time away every day just to be training for the CrossFit Games and really, for what? So I just told myself early on after decided that I would start training again and trying to make another run at the CrossFit Games that I was not going to spend 4 hours every single day in the gym for an entire year to prepare for the CrossFit Games. And I had made up my mind, if the way that I decide to train isn't good enough, then I'm never going back to the CrossFit Games, because I have a family. I have a stepson who played basketball, and I love to watch him play basketball. I had a daughter who was graduating college and going to and moving to Nashville after she graduated. And I have a stepdaughter who is, lives out of town, who her mother and I like to go visit. And so all these things were just, I had to put everything into perspective. And so, like I said, it became, I was ahead of the curve because I was 43rd, I think, in the open, which was irrelevant to me. All I wanted to do is be top 200 because that score's tossed now. They don't even count it. So I was like, why kill myself to win the open? That's so unimportant. I just gotta be top 200. So I wound up finishing 34th or something like the 43rd or something like that in the open this year. And I was pleased. I was like, great, top 200. Let's just, move to the next round. So from October until March, I still just kept on training about like I was. And then the last 6 weeks before the online qualifier is when I cranked it back up, 3-4 hours a day, 2-3 workouts a day, every day, just really focusing on trying to get one of those top 10 spots. So at that point, I was like, all I got to be is 10th. I don't have to be number one. Again, my goal was to be number one at the CrossFit Games, not be number one at the online qualifier. But I started really doing Misfit programming, the 6-week program that they had programmed for Masters athletes to get ready for the online qualifier, and I stuck to it pretty strict. I had a 3-day or 3 times a day I was training, doing the strength in the morning and their cardio and accessory work and things like that in the afternoon. And plus early in the morning, I was doing ROM-WOD. my range of motion exercise of the day. So, it was 3-4 hours every day for those 6 weeks, but for the rest of the time, I was able to kind of keep my wife happy and balance my gym life with my personal life. So it was much better this year.
So that's kind of the end of the story. That's where we are today. But
Right.
there's a long journey from where you started to where you are today. So growing up, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Johnson City, Tennessee. I still live here currently. This has been my home for most of my life, except for the time that I was in the Marine Corps. I've lived in Johnson City. And I went to Banner Elk, North Carolina for a couple of years to a junior college there, Lees-McRae College. But this is home to me, Johnson City, Tennessee.
And were you an athlete growing up?
I played all kinds of sports growing up. As a high school student, I ran track, played football, basketball, the typical high school athlete, but once about my sophomore year, I decided just to become a football player. That's, I had this, I was very small in stature, but I always had this competitive nature about me. So, I guess being a shorter, smaller guy, always felt like I had a chip on my shoulder, something to prove. And why in the world I chose football, it's just beyond me, because I literally could have played baseball. I could have, I was pretty quick. I was a very good endurance athlete. I could have ran, the mile, 3 miles, and there was plenty of other things besides football, but I just love football. So that's the path that I took and played it in college. And, after a couple of years of playing college football, I decided that, that probably wasn't the best choice for a 5'8" guy, 165, 175 pounds to, that wasn't the wisest choice of sports to play. So,
what position did you play? I'm assuming it's not defensive end.
No, it was not defensive. That's correct. No, I played running back in high school, and then I played defensive back in college.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So then you decide to go into the Marines. Did you graduate from college, or did that happen prior to graduation?
No, actually the Marines was the choice that it was basically, so what I had done is messed around and lost my scholarship because I was not very focused on my grades. So I decided to join the Marine Corps in an effort to pay for the remainder of my college. So and it actually wound up being one of the best choices ever made. Really, after football was over for me because of my grades, really it wasn't, I just didn't have any focus. And so the Marine Corps was something that I much needed. At 14 years old, I lost my dad. It was just my mom, bless her heart, love her to death, but she just had no real she was working two full-time jobs, trying to raise 3 kids after her husband had passed away. So you can imagine, I was just wild. I was very wild. I had just some really crazy experiences I won't get into, but I got into one of my mom's journals one time and just page after page after page, please God, take care of Jeff. Please God, take care of Jeff, and because I was just really wild. So anyway, the Marine Corps was exactly what I needed at the time. And it gave me some discipline and some focus and things that I really needed in my life. So it was a good move.
Go ahead, Amy.
No, I was just going to say, I am so curious to hear about this professional boxing and the Tough Man competition. How did that come about? Because I grew up kind of the way I did, bar fights and things,
basically had developed a reputation as a quote unquote tough guy, which, you know, I hope someday I'll outlive that, because sometimes it still haunts me today. It just seems like when you get a reputation like that, everybody wants to see how they compare to the tough guy. So I spent a lot of times just, you know, street fighting. And so then, you know, this was before UFC and, you know, all the outlets that we have now for guys who are growing up like me, just, you know, somewhere that they can focus their anger and their aggression and their competitiveness and make money. Back then it was just a survival skill, I guess, you know. So I saw that in, I guess it was early 1990s, they were advertising these tough man competitions. I don't know if y'all remember Mr. T from the A-Team, the 80s TV show, but he kind of made those famous. And so it was just a traveling, they just go from town to town, put up a ring, invite all the people who wanted to, you know, jump in and fight, an opportunity to fight. So I did a few of those and a couple of those, one in Knoxville and one here in Bristol, and won them both. And so the one in Bristol caught the attention of a local boxing promoter who actually owned Bristol Motor Speedway. And because he was the funding behind it. And so he approached me after and said, hey, you know, we think you've got some potential. Would you be interested in doing some professional boxing? And they had a boxing arena behind the racetrack. And so Larry Carrier just kind of took me under his wing, got me a trainer, and you know, I just started training, and next thing I know, I'm you know, boxing professionally, making money at it. So it was a neat time.
So how long were you in the Marines?
I was in the Marines for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And I injured my back, fell off a helicopter, injured my back, and they put me out on disability, said that I wasn't fit for Marine Corps life, basically. Said that I was unfit for Marine Corps life because of my spondylolisthesis that had been discovered in the process. And I was in traction for, like, you know, 6 weeks, or well, no, probably not 6 weeks, 4 weeks, where you just lay in the bed and they're like stretching your neck and your spine and your feet and everything, trying to straighten your spine out. And you know, so I spent a lot of time in the military, or during my Marine Corps, trying to adjust to that back injury. And, you know, it was just kind of a constant issue, because when I would think, okay, I'm good, I'm ready to go back out, you know, and we would do some sort of training or something, and the next day I'd be laid up again, you know, just like, oh my gosh. So the rigors of the Marine Corps during that time were very difficult for me. So I just stayed in for 2.5 years and then took a medical discharge.
So it's a kind of ironic that you weren't fit enough for Marine duty, but you're fit enough to box and be tough man and
all that stuff. Yeah. It just, you know, and I that's a whole nother journey on its own about, you know, an addiction to pain pills, thinking that was, you know, the way to keep on training. And it's just another part of the story where when CrossFit became part of my life, how I just realized all the training, all the stuff that I had done my entire life, I just was kind of missing the point. And you know, that core to extremity that they preach in CrossFit, it's just not preached in other sports. They don't teach you about how important that the core strength really is. And you know, you're all the time doing these isolation muscle exercises, and you're completely ignoring the most important part of your body, which is your core. And so it really was not until I started doing CrossFit in 2012 that I kind of flipped all my perception of training and what health and fitness really was, and turned it all around. And you know, today I'm, you know, have a completely different opinion about health and fitness and what that means and what it looks like. But back then I didn't know any better. I was just naive and, had no real education in health and fitness other than just whatever I had been coached along the way by the people who were coaching me.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you decide to start a family?
Well, it was, my second wife and we got married in 1991 or 1992. She was actually pregnant before we got married, but we decided to do the right thing. And so, in 1992, we were married. In 1993, my first son was born. So, it's not, it's no secret that she was pregnant. I don't mean everybody knows it. So, but we decided just to do the right thing. And I stopped pretty much the pursuit of any kind of athletic, stuff at that point. Went to work for the VA. And I have been at the Veterans Hospital here in Johnson City ever since. And, that's been a blessing. Even though at times it was part of the problem, it's always been a good thing in my life working at the VA.
Mm-hmm.
So
What do you do there, Jeff?
right. Currently I am in logistics, but I also do all the printing and day-to-day operations with the print shop there at the VA. But I've done, I'm nearing 30 years there now. So I've done a little bit of everything at the VA. So this is, I had a lot of struggles through my time at the VA because, there was a time when they were just throwing pain pills at everybody. And, just that was a bad time in my life. And, but to their credit, they've stopped that. They've cracked down on that. I was addicted to pain pills for many years for my back condition, and it created other problems, psychological problems too. I mean, it's just, pain pills are a terrible way for people with chronic pain like I had to deal with pain. There is, rehab and exercise and core strengthening and those types of things are much healthier and much better advantages. It's just, we get lazy and it's easier for you to go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a medical doctor and be handed, the 30-day supply of pills and here you go. See you in 90 days, 30, 60, 90 days. And so that was a big part of the problem with my health and fitness then is I was just masking the pain rather than fixing the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the start of a long road for you at that point. So
Sure.
You mentioned your first son. Something tragic happened there,
Right.
That really sent you into a spiral.
Yes. So on top of the pain and the pain pills and a divorce and the unknown and, and just, out of the blue, I go to bed one night and life is, just going along the way that it's supposed to or the way that it has been. I won't say the way that it's supposed to, but the way that it has been. And then your son dies unexpectedly. My son died unexpectedly and, the whole world changed in an instant. And so it just started a reevaluation process in me internally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. And through that reevaluation process, I, became saved and found Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and just started a whole nother path physically, spiritually, and mentally. But I had an experience with my dad passing away of going in the other direction. So at 14, when my father passed away, I went in a completely different rebellious direction and turned my back on God and just refused to go to church. And I won't say I never believed in God because I don't think you can be angry at things that you don't believe in. So, obviously there was some faith there. It just wasn't, there was some belief there. There just wasn't any faith that God had, had my back or had my best interest or even that he loved me. I mean, it was just so foreign to me. It's like, why would a God who loves someone let all, this bad stuff happen to somebody who's just trying hard to, get by. And so I had that experience to draw from. So, there were a lot of signs after my dad died, things that I could have chalked up to God loving me and trying to show me things, but I just chalked it up to coincidence and ignored it through my anger. I'm 14. I was 14.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of difference in 14 and 49, or 47. So, I had some wisdom behind me. And so the things that I would see after my son passed away, I could have chalked it up to coincidence, but it just wasn't. I mean, there were just some things that happened along the way that made me know that God was talking to me and saying, hey, I'm here. I love you.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an event that happened after your son's death. And I'm not only assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you really hit rock bottom. And that was your trip to the lake.
Yes. That's really tough to talk about.
Yeah.
I kind of warned you guys that those memories just.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I think we can probably just give a narrative for our listening audience to let them know that, you got to a real dark place, right? And
Right.
found it real hard to cope. And, maybe for a moment or two, maybe longer than a moment or two, you wanted to sort of just be done with everything. Right.
Yeah.
And so, you went through that process. By the grace of God, someone found you and allowed you to live on another day and to sort of, show testament to the rest of your life and how you turn things around. So if you want to take us from that moment on, you can do that.
So, by the grace of God, like you said, somebody found me, and that's another really cool story. But it just, it's never coincidence. If you really just pay attention in life, and when you're really down and out and you're crying out for help, God answers. And I could give you 2 or 3 stories of when, there was just no way it was coincidence. It was God answering a specific prayer, and it was immediate and it was instant. And, just like with my failed suicide attempt, that guy wasn't even supposed to be there. He was just testing a new kayak out. And, it just, when I heard his story, I was like, I gotta appreciate the love of God and really understand that, when you get in those, when I got into that place in my life, I was looking at life through so narrow a focus. I was missing all this stuff, all these big pictures, and I was just focused on this, it was just focusing on the bad. And I forgot about, my wife who loves me,
And
my daughter who loves me.
It's almost selfish, right?
It's very selfish. It's a selfish focus. Yeah. And it's very, had I died, I would have left a lot of people in a terrible, I just can't even imagine now. And it, like I said, it's very difficult for me to think about, because it could have gone the other way. And, and rather than being where we are today, I could have messed up a whole lot of people's lives, and left them with just, so much turmoil. And
Yeah. So what have you done with that opportunity then? Let's give us like a date to ground us, and then let's talk about what's happened since then.
Yeah. So since that time, there were, pain pills are still in my life. And, I had not really discovered CrossFit at that point in time. And so,
Jeff, were you seeking any kind of professional help?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to the VA, and I was on pain pills, and I was on antidepressants, and I was on, this and that. And, they were always just playing around with my medicines. And, and this goes back to me saying early on that the VA has been a blessing, and also a kind of an awakening to me. There's just some things you can't throw pills at. There's just some things that people have to work through, and people have to, process. And You know, while the VA does a magnificent job and they're doing so much better now than they ever did before with that ideology, for a long time it was, let's just throw pills at the problem and, you know, try to fix it that way. But that is no longer the situation there. Now, that just may be from my personal experience, because after that suicide attempt, I went in and told the doctor, obviously, none of this is working, and obviously this is the wrong path. So I declined any pills. And I just, at that point forward, I had to do the withdrawal thing all on my own and, you know, just deal with it. I didn't ask for any help. I didn't check myself into a hospital. Of course, you know, after, I couldn't have any of those things when I was in the hospital, because after my suicide attempt, I was committed to a hospital for a couple of weeks. And so, gave me a lot of time to be very clear-headed and to really start thinking that, hey, I need a new path. I need a new journey. And so
at this point, is God now moving into the center of your focus, or have you not got there yet?
He had already started. When my son died, there was a huge event that happened that just made me, you know, a couple of days after he died, that it really woke me up to the fact that God was there and he loved me and he's listening to me. And, you know, it's a long story, but I'll just give you I'll give you the cliff notes. So, the way my son died was very tragic, and the way that we found him was just, you know, hard to see. And, so I had an image, locked in my head of that, and I just could not get rid of it. And it just, you know, every time that I imagined him here in his last little bit, it was just terrible. But, so I don't know why that's, you know, so upsetting still, because that's no longer the situation. You know, I had this epiphany happen that God showed me that Jake was with Jesus. And I had this this moment when a song just came on the radio, and you just, I can't give you all the details because I know you guys are limited, but it just made me know that Jake was with Jesus and everything was okay, and that, you know, life was going to be okay. So I had that experience prior to this, and it's just, you know, I was listening and seeing the signs and paying attention, but at the same time, the devil, which I was, you know, I was really unaware of things like good and evil and how that really is happening in the spiritual world. And whether you believe it or not, it's irrelevant. It's going on with everybody. And I don't, you know, whether you're, you know, Christian or Muslim or whatever, there is a evil and there is a good, and both of those forces are working very strong in your life. And whether you give those any credence with spirituality, that's on you. But just, it's a real and prevalent thing, and it's happening. And whichever one you feed is the one that's going to win. And I was obviously feeding the one that was telling me that I was worthless, that Jake's death was my fault, that nobody loved me, that I was unworthy. You know, I bought into that voice in the back of my head that was telling me that everything wrong in my life was my fault, and that Jake's death was my fault, and that the divorce was my fault. And I was accepting responsibility for all these things and never trying to look at it from a different perspective. And when I say that's how you look at it, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. That's what happens. You just start to believe that you're worthless, that it's not going to matter, that nobody's going to care, that God doesn't love you, and that it's okay if you die. And that's a lie. It's a flat out lie. And when you get on this side of it, and you see all the things and opportunities that God's opened up to me since then, from just, you know, giving my faith to Jesus Christ and professing him as my Lord and Savior and trying to walk a better life. It's just opened up so many other doors. And, you know, if there's one message that comes from this podcast to maybe somebody that's listening, if you're in that place, don't believe it. There is a better way. There is a better way. You just have to find it. You just have to have faith and find it.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I appreciate you being open and honest about it, because I think even in our sport, you know, where everybody's tough and and can handle a lot of adversity and things like that. But there is a lot of, that kind of anguish in any population that you talk to. And I think it's important for us to have role models like you to sort of be okay talking about it, and to sort of let us know that, this is normal, this is part of life, and that there's ways to get through it. So let's move on to CrossFit and how, fun stuff that we love to talk about helped get you through this as well, and sort of where that all started.
Sure. So that's the great thing about CrossFit. And how about that name, CrossFit? That was just another thing for me to go, wow, God, really? I'm trying to, use spirituality. I'm trying to be CrossFit. I want to learn more about Jesus and the love of Jesus. And then you throw me this exercise program called CrossFit, just the irony. So it was something that I just clung to once I got started in it. I think it was 2012 when I got my level 1 certification. The whole CrossFit thing came about because I was running multiple marathons. I had run 3 marathons since my son passed away in 2011. And I found it so in a little over a year and a half, I'd run 3 marathons, multiple half marathons, and I'm dealing with back issues. And I don't know if y'all have ever heard the term hair shirt, but it's a term that comes from the monks. So for penance, if they sinned, they would wear these hair shirts, and it would just itch and scratch and just drive them crazy. And that's what that was their penance. That's how they paid for their sins. And I think running was that for me. I felt so much guilt and so much shame. And I would just go out and run, and I would come back, and I couldn't focus on the pain of losing Jake and my guilt of everything being my fault. I was just beat up all the time. My back hurt. I was, taking multiple pain pills a day and on antidepressants, and, running just seemed to be the pain of running just seemed to be the place where I found penance or. Yeah. So it took my mind.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you feel like it blocked the noise? Like you could run? Yeah.
Yeah, I just go out and run. And so an orthopedic doctor and a surgeon at the VA said, man, you got to stop. You're killing your knees. You're killing your back. We're going to have to do back surgery to fix all the stuff that you've messed up in your back. And I'd already had 4 knee operations along the way. And so I was just miserable. I felt like every day I would just I couldn't bend my joints. I mean, I could run, I could do all these things, it seemed like but I was just hurting all the time. So finally I took the advice of my doctors and, stopped running. But then what? I was just stuck. I was kind of like, now what am I going to do? I mean, and so that's when the suicide attempt came. And so after that, my sister said, hey, I want you to try this workout called CrossFit. And I'm like, well, what is it? I had no clue. She's like, well, just go and try it. There was only one CrossFit gym in the entire Tri-Cities area. So it was close to the house. I went one Saturday morning. We did bear crawls. We did deadlifts, and we did pull-ups. And I left there with this sense of accomplishment, like, wow, that was cool. That was really hard. that was different. So, and the girl in the class, her name was Tracy, and she was a friend of my wife's. And she just kicked my butt. I mean, she just made me look silly, and she'd been doing it for a while. And she had also been telling my wife that, hey, your husband would probably like to do CrossFit, as competitive as he is and as athletic as he is, he'd probably like it. So I went, she kicked my butt. A few months later, I went and got my level 1 certification. I started doing CrossFit at local gyms here and got run out of 2. They like, you can't do that here. You're intimidating our clients. So I was like, okay. So I bought a package online, put it in my basement, started watching YouTube videos and just I'd already started doing that, but I would just look at CrossFit's daily workout, and my buddy Zane and one of my son's best friends, Justin Summy, we would go down in the basement every day and we would do the CrossFit workout of the day. And if we didn't know a move, we would YouTube it or Google it and see how to do it. And so, we did that for probably a year. And then CrossFit started becoming bigger and bigger in 2013. More people started hearing about it. More gyms were opening up in the Tri-Cities. And so during that year of doing it down in the basement, I would, because I would follow these YouTube videos, it would, Rich Froning, it was always on a YouTube video. Chris Spieler was always on a YouTube video. These CrossFit athletes that had been doing CrossFit since the inception would be the ones when you Googled would come up. And so they were always talking about the Open and the CrossFit Games and all this stuff, and I'm like, what, what are they talking about? Didn't really pay any attention to it. Just kept doing my thing with my buddies down in the basement. And then I guess like we had done it for a whole year, and then probably 3 or 4 months, they started talking about the CrossFit Open, and I didn't know what that was. So I did learn that you had to do it at a CrossFit gym. So I went into a CrossFit gym and did one of the workouts that the whole class was doing, and it was deadlifts and box jumps, and it killed me, and I about died, and I think everybody in the entire class beat me. And I was like, I know I'm better than some of these. I went back home. I was like, I just got to keep doing this. So I did it for another year down in my basement. So that's about 2013, 14. And I had learned so much about CrossFit during that next year and the Open and the Games. And because, during that time, it was like CrossFit was everywhere. I don't know if y'all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it was like, CrossFit was on social media everywhere all the time. It was just CrossFit Games, Rich Froning, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a lot about it. And then the following year, I went back to that same CrossFit gym, and I did the first workout, and I got to class about, right when everybody else was leaving, and my Joe Brown, who wound up being my coach, and his girlfriend were the only two there. And I was like, hey, this is the first Open in 2014, first workout in the Open in 2014. And it had double unders and
snatches.
Thank you. Snatch. and I couldn't double under. I mean, I could do maybe 4 or 5, and then, I'd trip up, 4 or 5, trip up. So I did that workout and kept Joe Brown like an hour after the class. And, it was Saturday. So anyway, I tease him all the time because I did terrible on that workout, and he stayed and judged me, and I entered my score, and he showed me all about how to put your score in, and he judged it for me, and he was very kind and humble. But I just, I know when I left that day, I tell him all the time, I bet you thought, I don't know who that old guy is, but I hope I never see him again. But I came back the next week, and they did the Open workout for 2014. The second one was pull-ups and overhead squats. Yeah. And you added rounds if you could complete the number within the
3 minutes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that one and just crushed it because it was just go. It was pull-ups and overhead squats, and then the weight wasn't too heavy. It was just all cardio and your ability to hang on to the pull-up bar. And so I think I've wound up 27th in the world on that workout. And so everybody was like, we need to teach this guy how to do double unders.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of the thing is, so after that, I didn't even come back to the gym after that for a while. I just started working on double unders really hard. And, and then eventually I did join CrossFit Stacked. And that was good because it got me in a more competitive atmosphere with people who knew way more than I did. And so the rest is just history. So after that Open was over, I went back to CrossFit Stacked, and I joined and started working out with, I got a workout partner. And like I said, Joe Brown, who was the first one who ever judged me, but he's very knowledgeable and knew a lot more than I did about the movement standards and, how to do proper form and technique on all the Olympic lists. Cause that's, I was always a good endurance athlete, but you throw a barbell in a workout and it just crushed me. I mean, as long as it was pull-ups and running and sit-ups and GHDs, anything gymnastics and cardio,
Yeah.
I was there. But you throw a heavy barbell in, and it destroyed me. Mainly because I had terrible range of motion and I didn't know how to do the movements well. But
it sounds like YouTube, and you were your own coach those first few years.
oh yeah,
100%. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I did it. All I did was took my level 1 certification and thought and just YouTubed it and built my own kind of system, or work a bit, figured out how to do the clean and the snatch and the jerk and all that stuff on my own. Once I finally got a coach, and I realized that I didn't do such a good job coaching myself. I wasn't really all that good at it after all.
I think you and I are the same age, 47, right? You 47?
Oh yeah, I wish. Yeah, 55.
I was going to say, if you need a partner, because I love a heavy barbell and I hate endurance and gymnastics.
Oh,
so
yeah?
A good mixed pair. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. We need to look at some competitions and see if we can't partner up on that, because if
Perfect.
it's, I've gotten better, especially this year. I made that in 2016. We came back from the games from 2015 and said, okay, well, Jeff's just not strong enough. He's got to get stronger. So from 2015, 2016, that's basically what I worked on, was most of the year was just becoming stronger. And not in the Olympic lifts really, but in the accessory movements like deadlift and squat. I got just in overhead press, got just really focused on those.
Mm-hmm. Did they have, were you at the games in 2016?
Yes.
Did they have that axle bar? Was that the
yes,
year?
I was going to bring that up.
What the heck?
So,
okay. The nemesis. That is. I was
actually at the games watching that.
So,
it was awful.
I was watching at home, and I was watching your division because I knew, and finally figured out who you were in our connection. And so, I was watching and I was waiting. I was like, all right, where's Jeff? Where's Jeff? Why isn't he coming out? I don't understand. And, you didn't come out. And then I learned because you tore your bicep while you were prepping on the axle bar.
So we talked about perseverance when they canceled the games this year. So this is a big part of the perseverance story. It's especially with CrossFit. So, I thought CrossFit was going to be my saving grace. And 2015, I finished 2 points off the podium. And then 2016, I'm 1 point out of second place and 6 points out of first place going into the final heat. And I'm back there warming up. And I had been having some bicep tendon issues before I even got there. I mean, I couldn't even straighten my arm out all the way. And I told Joe first day we got out there and we were working out at one of the local gyms, California. I was like, man, something's going on. I said, I can't fully extend. I can't fully lock out my elbow. And so I went to Rosti every day and they scraped it and taped it, and I just kind of went through the 2016 CrossFit Games as best I could. And then they threw that damn, excuse my French, axle bar on the last workout. And, I'm 5'8", 5'8.5" at the most. I used to be 5'9", but I think because I've had so many knee surgeries, and my hands, as you can tell, they're not huge like Ron Ortiz. I don't know if y'all follow him.
Oh, he's been on here.
On the show.
Okay. Well, so, they say axle bar and you just see his eyes light up, and they say axle bar and I'm like, what? Every time that I messed around with it, Joe had me do stuff with it, but it was just, it's just awkward. It's an awkward implement. I mean, I don't know for those who are listening, if you know what an axle bar is, but it's 3 to 4 times the diameter of a regular Olympic lifting bar. So, it's hard to get your hands around. And at the weight, I mean, 185 pound clean is not that difficult with an Olympic bar. It's, but 185 pound clean with an axle bar becomes problematic for guys with smaller hands. I mean, you just can't get your hand wrapped around it. So I had to turn
Like a mixed grip.
The demo, they made it so the girl who demoed, I don't know if y'all know Brooke Hance, but she demoed it before, and she had one arm turned like this, like she was doing a deadlift instead of like this. So everybody adopted that. So you would use that motion to get it up to here because it was a clean, and then you had to do 9 push presses. So then you'd kind of bounce it, switch your grip, and then do the push presses. Well, so I had warmed up and I was ready to go, and it was so the workout was 12 some number of chest to bar pull-ups, 12 9-6 deadlift, clean push press with the 185-pound axle bar. So you had to do 12 of those 3 exercises, 9 and then 6 and then the finish. So I had warmed up, I was ready to go. And I don't know if y'all know who Ben Bergeron is, but he was back, with his athletes. And he was watching Alan Drawarty, one of our competitors in our age group, warm up. And he's like, man, I would never let one of my athletes do this workout. And I was like, really? Why? And he was like, because that is a bicep tendon waiting to happen. Oh. And I was like, really? I said, that's interesting. I mean, I had no idea that that's what the problem was in my hand until after the fact. And I was like, really, what would you suggest? And he said, well, rather than, catching the bar this way. So if you got to use that grip to pull it up, he said, rather than when you bring the bar down to reset, to go back up for your clean, he said, don't ever lock it out. Don't ever allow the bar to do this. Pick it up, pull it up to here. When you're going to bring it back down for another rep, he said, just let it fall to the floor and reset. So he showed me this new move that I could do with my hand rather than, holding it like this. I could catch it like this. It's really easy to bounce over. And I thought, okay, well, I'll go over there and practice that for a couple of times. I mean, literally, we're 10 minutes from going out. And I walked over there and picked that bar up. And when I grabbed hold of it, I started to pull it up and do his method, and my bicep tendon tore. Oh. And so, I'm rolling around on the ground screaming, like I've been shot and I was dying or something. And so they take me down to X-ray, and they do the X-ray, and they get me out just in time. And I think I'm going to be able to go out there and participate. And I didn't realize how important it was for me just to be able to walk out there on those stadium steps until after or walk down into the arena until after the fact. But what I learned through the process of not being able, because they wouldn't let me go. They were like, nope, you can't go. And I was like, I mean, if you all, if you just look at the math here, all you got to do is let me go down there and stand and collect 10th place points. If you give me the points for 10th place, I will finish 3rd no matter what the rest of the field does. They can't catch me. Even if the last place guy, even if the 4th place guy finished 1st, which there was no way anybody was beating Ron Ortiz in that workout. And nobody was going to beat the 2nd place guy either because he was a beast, Marco Casali. So, but had the 4th place guy beat them all and finished 1st, he still wouldn't have caught me. If he'd have been 1st place and I would have been 10th place, my 10th place points would have been enough to keep me in 3rd place. I didn't even have to do the workout. All I had to do was get the points. And they would not let me go down on the floor because it was so close. They couldn't. They kept saying, no, we don't want you to get hurt. And at the time, I thought I had to do 1 rep, do a pull-up.
Yeah.
And later I learned that Billy Goodson, in the very first workout, had 375-pound deadlifts, and he had hurt his back, and he had a sciatic nerve pain, so he didn't do one of the deadlifts. But they gave him the points for 20th place. And he got to go on and compete. He didn't do 1 rep in that workout. They gave him the points for 20th place, and he got to go on and compete the rest of the weekend. All they had to do was let me walk down on the floor and collect my money and do not pass go. I probably would have been satisfied at that point. Had I finished 3rd and it went down that way, I'd probably been like, well, I'm good. I'm good. But it just left this big unknown in my life. And, I had, just like with giving God the glory for getting to the CrossFit Games, I had to praise God for whatever he's teaching me from that experience. And, you know, after that, I healed up and I was starting to train again, but I was still having the same pain that I was having prior to the games. Like there was something wrong with my shoulder. And I kept saying, Doc, I went back to the surgeon. I was like, you know, you may have fixed it, but whatever you fixed isn't fixing here. He said, well, let's do an MRI. So he does the MRI, and I go back 3 or 4 days later to get the results. And the surgeon walks in with the MRI in his hand. He's just kind of shaking his head at me and looking at me like, you know, I can't believe this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you've got a rotator cuff tear in your shoulder, and it's been there for a very long time. And that would explain why you've been dealing with all this shoulder pain prior to your injury. So I had a rotator cuff tear in 2015 and 2016 and competed in the games.
Wow.
Yeah. So they fixed that, right? And that's the thing that he said that was really funny. He's like, you're either the toughest guy I know or the dumbest guy I know. I said, let's go with toughest. So he fixes that, and then I am on the road to recovery from that. I'm doing really good. Getting more and more range of motion, starting to feel really good again. And I go to just jump with some friends and their children, and I jump off a trampoline and grab a ring with my other hand and tore my other rotator cuff. So this was all from 2016 until currently. So we're talking about during that 3-year time period there. I had 3 surgeries, 2 rotator cuff tears. I had that bicep tendon repair. And so I had given up on CrossFit. I was like, you know, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm going to continue.
Now you have all the bionics. Now you have all the bionics. So now you're ready to go.
Yeah. And so, you know, it just seemed like every time I was gaining momentum, something else would happen. And that last rotator cuff tear, I was like, you know what? It's and even though I didn't do it doing CrossFit, I did it on the rings, which we all know, you know, CrossFit has. And so, I don't know. I just kind of got into a slump about it and had stopped training like I was ever going to go back to the CrossFit Games. I just started doing a whole lot of range of motion stuff, really focusing on ROMWOD every day, YouTube and just there I am again with YouTube. YouTube and range of motion, you know, stuff, stretches and things to heal your joints. And, you know, and I've been very religious about doing those things. I've put together my own stretching program now from what I learned from ROMWOD and also what I've learned from YouTube videos. So I've kind of got my own flow session that I do every day. And, you know, I'll miss workouts. I'll miss Olympic lifting. I'll miss cardio workouts, but I will not miss my flow sessions. I just, you know, that's the one thing that I knew if I could get better, then the other stuff would probably get better. Because that's why I was hurting myself, is because I just couldn't get in the proper position. And a lot of times it was because I was injured and I was compensating. But now I have no injuries, have no reason to not, you know, be able to get in those positions. I just have to fight through the pain. But the difference in fighting through injury pain and the difference in fighting through like resistance pain is different. You know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you're stretching your hamstrings and you feel them tight, you know that's not an injury. That's just tight hamstrings.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I'm at. You know, if I feel something, I'm like, that's not an injury. That's just me not being able to, you know, that's a tight tendon. That's a tight ligament. That's something that I'm going to stay here until it gets better. And so I've gotten really, really more efficient with my Olympic lifts because I have so much more range of motion than I had since 2016. And I think in large part that and just a different attitude about it, kind of like I'm not going to, if it comes, it comes, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'll work hard when it's time to work hard, but I'm not going to sacrifice everything that I sacrificed in 2015 and 2016. And so
what are your thoughts on the 2021 season then for you, Jeff? Are you going to still just kind of be open to see what happens?
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing I did this year. I'm going to, you know, I backed off as soon as I heard that the games were canceled. I was like, good. You know, I had done deload week right after. I said, this is a great time for me to deload. So I just went back to doing some old bodybuilding, isolation muscle stuff, that's not very taxing. And of course, continuing to do all my flow routine. I'm going to continue to do that every day. But I'm going to take it easy for a couple months. I'm not going to beat myself up for an entire year to make it to the CrossFit Games, which is just a weekend competition. I don't think that that's necessary. At this age, you can definitely overtrain, and you have to be really, really careful about that, or I do. So I'll back off for a little while, and then when it's time to crank it back up, I'll crank it back up for the Open. And, in October, I'm not going to try to win that. So you all probably see me somewhere in the high 50s, maybe, but I'm not going to be concerned about that Open score. If they do it the same way, it'll just be to get to the next round. I'm going to use the same mentality that I have. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to go see my daughter in Nashville. I'm going to go visit my stepdaughter in her new home in Topsail Beach. I'm going to go visit my stepson who just got accepted to Ohio State.
Woo! Awesome.
Yeah, so he'll be at Ohio State. So maybe I can come
Absolutely.
meet him and meet you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, should drop into our gym.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I would love that. I would love that. So, I'm going to enjoy life and not look at this as a setback, but just another something that Jeff Goebel has to persevere and overcome and to achieve my goal. It's since 2015, it's been on my heart to be crown the fittest, in my age group. And I'm still going to actively pursue that, but I'm not going to sacrifice my whole life to make that happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I gotta thank you so much. As a fellow believer, it's really cool to hear your story and allow you to kind of talk about your testimony a little bit and share that with the world. That's really cool. And I just really appreciate you taking the time out with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity. Anytime that we as Christians, or not, I'm not going to say Christians, but followers of Jesus Christ have an opportunity to say he saved me, I think we should take that opportunity. And I really appreciate y'all giving me this chance.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's
And
great.
I'm so glad that you're on the other side of it now. And I can't wait to root for you next year when things get back to normal and get you back to the games.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you guys in the next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Griffin will be heading to college in August. And so we'll probably make that trip down and maybe we can get a workout together. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
All right. Fantastic.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks a lot, Jeff. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.
You
All right,
too.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was a very emotional interview, and I'm so glad that Jeff felt comfortable enough to tell us his story. And I was really glad to get it out there because I think it's really important for people to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to display that story. Of course I wanted to represent him because it's showing, an amazing, phenomenal masters athlete, but more importantly, it's just an amazing, phenomenal story that I think needs to be out. So.
With that, there's a couple news bits I do want to touch on. I know this is a midweek release and we don't usually do a big rundown, but there's a couple things that happened in the last few days. And one was on the bottom line with Nikki Brazier and Justin LaFranco. They talked about the fact that the Masters are kind of coming together to form their own competition, just like the teens and teams did. And then also the Latin American champions are kind of coming together to do one for themselves. And kind of the question I have for you guys is, with all this happening and CrossFit not doing a competition for them, does this open the door that maybe these divisions will be represented by a third party as opposed to CrossFit in the future?
I think it opens the door for that, for sure. I think that it would be interesting to see maybe someone else, some other event, crown the fittest, of those different age groups as opposed to at the games. I don't
you know, I don't know about trademarking and calling it the fittest and all that kind of stuff, but I've often thought of that as we've moved to this sort of sanctional model, that there would be, you know, maybe Wadapalooza is the place where, you know, world champions in those age groups are crowned, or at the Granite Games, or at some other, you know, separate event that could still be not sanctioned by CrossFit, but like licensed by CrossFit, right? They do licensing of competitions and things like that for a fee. So it might not be worth it for them. Like I was saying before, it might not be worth it for them to put on for age groups ever again. I hope not, but I think the community and the powers that be outside of HQ will figure out a way to make it so that they have a something on an annual basis for them, I would hope.
Yeah, and I kind of think like it can be sanctioned by CrossFit HQ, but this allows them to focus on the open division and give the best coverage for that event possible. And it gives us kind of a taste of CrossFit in other times of the year. When like they could have a teen weekend, they could have a masters weekend. And if a third party's doing that, it's really easy for them to kind of do that separately and on a separate weekend. So we have a little more CrossFit to watch during kind of that end of the season run.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear all that. And I think if they do that, I mean, I could see that being a possibility. If they do that, like I want it known, like this is the masters competition. This is a team's competition. But like just going back to listening to what Annika was saying is, you know, like she's like that, this is great. I love that they're putting together something, but it's not the games. You know what I mean? So I think that if this is what they're training for, I'm training for this masters competition, and they know that the whole time, then that's different to me than just being like, okay, you were training for the games and we aren't able to do that because of these circumstances. So we're going to put together something that you can, you know, test out your fitness right now, but it's not the games. We're not trying to be the games. We're just trying to give you some test. That's awesome. But I just want it to be a clear division if it is going to be the games going future or if not.
Right. For CrossFit to come out and say, hey, we're not going to do age groups at the games anymore, but this is your competition. I get it. That makes sense.
And we will call them the fittest 55 to 59-year-old in the world.
Heck yeah. Yep.
All right. So let's move down to my buddy, Lefteris Theophanides. It was officially announced this week that he will serve a 4-year ban from CrossFit for ingesting
all the things.
All
the things.
All the performance enhancing drugs. And still finishing near the bottom in Dubai with all of those in his system when he tested positive for all of them. So,
but somehow managed to get third in the Open.
I know it's crazy. He must have had a good 5-week period there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Maybe he tapered for the Open, and then he wasn't ready for Dubai when it came.
Crazy.
I'm so annoyed. I mean, I normally don't get this fired up about something, but because we've been like focusing on it this whole podcast, I am super annoyed about all of it because I just feel like with all the cheating, like I just don't like cheaters. I realize that sometimes bad things happen, like looking at Ryan Elrod, like certainly certain things happen, but this has been the story the whole time. And that's why I'm just super annoyed by it.
Yeah. And when it came out there, you know, plenty of athletes voiced their opinion and said, well, no duh, like we knew that, you know, it's about time kind of a thing. So,
and his response was basically F you to everybody. I don't care. So that's not a great defense. And, I'm just sad that we probably won't be talking about him for the next 4 years. So, you know, rest in peace, Lefteris Theophanides. And I won't have to say that name again.
Perfect.
So
there you go.
All right. One more piece of bad news is, if you have not seen it, the CEO of Unbroken Designs went to Instagram, posted a picture of her child eating tacos, and made a very derogatory statement about that, calling her child an ethnic slur in the Latin American community. She then tried to I think she first said she knew that it was offensive, but did it anyway. Then
she was called out on it and said, "Do you know what you're saying?" She said, "Yes, I know what I'm saying."
Right.
Yeah.
Then
I'm
pulled
aware.
it, changed it, put it back out, and then did an apology, which she pulled later as well. But you can find that on the Morning Chalk Up. They actually have the original apology out there. So what she did was horrible and should not be done by anybody. But then the fallout from that has been just as bad.
Yeah.
Her children and her husband have been threatened with their lives. To the point, like, I think her husband received a letter saying that they were going to cut off his children's head, and you could find it. So, I mean, like, it has gone from absurd to ridiculous. And this has to stop at some point, right? You know, my wife and I watched a movie last night about this, like, racial insensitivity in London. And like, I just look at it and I'm like, how does this still go on today? It just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, what she did was wrong. She said so. She admitted it. She said she was sorry. I know for some people that's not going to be enough. I can't say that I can relate. I certainly have a privileged life. But I don't think that it warrants death threats to your family or to you.
Especially to children who had nothing to do with the incident at all.
Right.
Right. People are just, losing their minds right now for all kinds of reasons. And it's making, those things it's like throwing gasoline on a fire,
Yeah. I think you're right. I think people are angry right now too. And this, that's a way to let it out too. And
so hopefully calmer heads will prevail.
Yeah.
It's probably not a good outlook for Unbroken Designs as a company. But it shouldn't come to death threats and things of that nature.
Yeah, agreed.
So let's end on a positive note, because our little, and I can never remember the name she calls herself.
Polypragmatist.
As
she
opposed
to Debbie Downer.
And
but she's usually right.
This morning, news broke that the state of California is going to allow professional sports.
Shut up. That's cool.
Yeah. So they are looking at opening mid-June for sports, even though the stay at home is until July 30th or 31st, whatever it is.
Okay.
Because they think that the communities need something to hang their hats on, and to distract themselves during this time. It will be no spectators, which is what the plan is for Aromas.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll just be the teams will be allowed to go to the practice facilities. They will be allowed to conduct sports, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, or CrossFit.
Is CrossFit a sport? Like, have we established that? Because seriously, that's a serious question.
It would have to be.
Okay, good.
It would have to be in these things. New York. So, we said last time that Arizona and Florida had opened the doors to professional sports. And now all the other states are going, shoot, we don't want to lose the opportunity. So New York, Texas, California, it's just like a big domino effect. They're all jumping in saying professional sports will be allowed. And even some are saying like Little League camps are going to be allowed to be open. But the only people that can come to the games are like parents. And they must practice social distancing at the game.
This gives me hope for high school football in the fall.
Right.
So it's starting, and I just wanted to end on a really good note, especially for our dear cat, who is always bringing us the wah, wah, wah.
Okay. I'm not going to add to it. I'm just going to leave it right there.
So that's a big positive sign. Whether, it's still not 100% that these games are going to go off. We don't know if there's going to be another surge, but that's a really good sign that we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. I'll give you that.
So with that, let's end on that high note, and we'll see you next time on the Clydesdale CrossFitter and Friends.
Bye.
See ya.